Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. I was talking about in another video about what it means to tempt God, okay, and how precious His love is, and how tempting Him by willingly choosing to go against His way to test His love somehow or to test His care is actually trampling on Him and dishonoring and trampling His love and His mercy. So, and it's not honoring those things. So you're actually creating great harm in your life when you do that. And you see that where Satan tempts Jesus. And the other one that I want to talk about is talking about living on every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Okay, so in verse 3 of Matthew 4, it says, "Now, when the tempter came to him, he said, 'If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread.' But he answered and said, 'It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God.'" This transformation that's happening right now, and I've been talking about getting the new wineskins, and now you're getting the new wine. The new wine is the union of the wisdom and the love, the king and the priest, the fullness of Christ, that oil of spirit with that love of Christ, all of that coming together within you. And there's this intertwining that's happening between the two. And when you see that happening in your life, what's happening is a lot of stuff is being purged that isn't of the purest of love. And as it's purged, you're having all understanding because truth and love are starting to come together now within you, okay? And that love is unlike anything else that this world has seen because we've all been in death. I was talking about how we all had this disease like rabies where we were just, that affects your mind. It's the same thing. I mean, our minds have just been corrupted. You know, that's that flesh mind, that's that carnal mind, that's that corruption. That now's the time to put off the corruption and to put on incorruption, to put on that new man, that new life. And we're able to do that now unlike ever before because that's what it means for Christ to come back. Okay, is that spirit is coming back in us. It's the union of the two. Now, as this happens, what it feels like is, okay, it is this great purging because anything that's not of love is being pushed out of your life. Okay? And that also means people that are still so much with the disease of sin and of that rabies, because that rabies is going to be starting to manifest because it can be in an animal, but and it starts showing itself, it gets really ugly. Okay? And it's not the animal itself, it's that he's got that sickness. That's how disease is. That's how you should see people. It's the wickedness in them, right? They have just been slaves to sin. They have been slaves to unrighteousness, but that's why Christ is the great healer, the great physician. That's what he came to do, to save the lost, to open the eyes of the blind, to heal the lame, to heal the leprosy. Okay, so but those people, if they are still unaware, so they're not reaching out to embrace that healing serum, that spirit within them, then that is going to be manifesting the disease that they have. And when they do that, it's weeping and it's gnashing of teeth. It's just, it gets vicious and it gets hurtful and harmful. That's where their love grows cold, right? And there's not that love anymore. And all of that is because the darkness of the heart, that disease that they have is revealing itself. It's being shown for what it is, okay? So as if they're getting more harmful, those that are growing up with that pure, beautiful, tender spirit of love that is so beautiful and open and vulnerable, they can't be near them because it's just too harmful, okay? But since we're all connected, eventually that life will spread to all, okay? But each in his own order and each in his own way. However, God plays all that out because that's all under his control, okay? But that's why you have that. So if you want to be healed, if you want that healing serum, you've got to embrace it. And it's that love and truth happening in with you. So you have to make the choices as God leads you in the wisdom and that truth, and let that truth and that love infuse within you. And that means listening to the voice of God and following that as he leads you. So pulling away from cruelty in your life. Start walking in the ways of life, choosing life always and not death. And I've shared with you some examples of how God's done that with me. It's from relationships to what I eat, and no longer, eating and doing or buying or spending my resources on things that continue the cruelty and the torment of animals. It's getting rid of anything that's of hypocritical love, because that's very damaging, of any kind of resentment or any kind of cruelty that I was doing to other people. Okay? And again, there's a lot that God purges from your life in this, because sometimes, when we're hurt, we can be harmful to other people because we're acting out of our hurt and out of our own pain. But that's not what God wants. He doesn't want personal vengeance. He doesn't want resentment. He doesn't want us to do those things. He wants love. And so that's why sometimes you have to separate yourself from people, because sometimes people will be just so harmful because now you're so vulnerable. Okay, so you have to have, it's that protection around your spirit. But you have to start making those choices for Christ, the fullness in you, even if it says choosing between that and some relationship. Because if they're full of that disease and they don't know it and they're just hurting you, you can't be in that. It's too painful. Okay? So you have to start making those choices for that spirit so that spirit can grow. Because if you keep harming that spirit, it's not going to grow because you're not honoring it. That spirit of God growing in you demands honor. And that's what you want to give it. You want to honor it because you value it. It is a precious treasure to you. Okay? And it's not about being better than somebody else. It's not about being holier than somebody else. Because that's the thing, when you have that spirit, you want all to be healed. Because you realize you're all the same. You all were diseased. It's just that you happen to be, it's like you're just waking up. God just woke you up first from the sleep. Was it your choice to wake up first? It was His grace. It's just how He's working things out. So you want that for everybody else. But even though you want that for them, it's like the animal. If you have a dog that has rabies, you're not going to let him into the house to bite your children, to bite your other dogs, and to infect them. You may love them, and you're going to do what you can to help them, to heal them, but you can't let them into your home. That's what it's about. So, but if you want to be in that kingdom, you have to start making the choices for life. So it's like you have to start thinking and going back to the beginning of the Garden of Eden, because that's where the things are being restored. So that's where I talked about the food that you take and not having it being partaking that flesh, because that is all of the old of death. That was all symbolizing of the death that was here, that was reigning. Okay? But that's not what it's like in the kingdom. There is peace. There is love. There is no pain. There is no suffering. So those things don't exist. So if you want to move into the kingdom, you got to start letting go of those things. You can't hold on to them and think that you can also be in the kingdom. And that's what he was saying. You live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And that's him instructing you in the ways of life. That's what allows you to live. But if you don't receive those words, meaning you don't allow that to become your truth and act on it, then you're going to stay clinging to death and on the outside, which is becoming that outer darkness, like I talked about. So if you want to move into the kingdom, you have to make the very real choices that allows that truth and that love to fuse together and become a reality, so that your reality can be created as a Garden of Eden. I mean, it affects your physical reality. And so it's talking about, what did they do in the garden? They walked with God daily. That's that communion. Remember, that's what I talked about with the praise and the thanksgiving. It's that interaction with God's Spirit, that obedience. There was a love for all creation. There was respect. There was honor. They ate of the fruit of the earth, of the trees, of the herbs of the field. It wasn't about eating of things of death. Okay? They walked in the wisdom of God. They had a oneness with Adam and Eve had a oneness between each other. So it's having a oneness with other people. And that's what you find when you start moving in the kingdom, that you start becoming, because you realize that spirit in you is the same spirit that's coming up in these other people. And so you have a oneness with all these people. And so you're making decisions and you're growing in that oneness. And God shows you how to do that. The work of your hands, which you do, isn't out of slavery, isn't bondage anymore. You start, actually, your work and what you do is just like a fruitful blessing. It's peaceful and it's joyous. I mean, these things are actually changing in your life. It's amazing. It's literally becoming like the Garden of Eden. The abundant life. Life. No death. You have to make choices for life and no more for suffering and no more for pain. So if you're continuing to feed jobs and lifestyles and things that are full of dishonor and pain and suffering and all that stuff, you're not making the choices for life. So you got to seek God's wisdom. How do I make choices for life in my circumstances? And He'll show you how to do that. There is, and what you also see, and this is very important, is, when there was that fall, there was that division between Adam and Eve and the relationship between men and women. Remember? He said, Eve, is that your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. Well, as you move into the kingdom, all that starts to change, and you have to be willing to make those changes in accordance with that, where there is honor right now. And you lift both each other up in your roles, realizing you're the same spirit. That when you're loving your spouse, you're loving yourself. You're the same spirit. And so there's no longer this separation or this, ill-used power, which can go from either side, that you see often in relationships today. You had to be willing to have all that renewed to come into a place of respect and honor and lifting up, and then coming into the place and the roles and the unity that God designed you to be. So that means a lot of work and a lot of people's hearts to get to that point. But that's what you have to be willing to do, is to let go of all the things of death, all the things that cause the separation, and start to learn what creates that unity. If you want life, you got to choose life. And now is the time to choose life, because it is starting to grow. And when you do, it is beautiful. And you realize that God is giving you the very desires of your heart. And the part you play was by following His wisdom and His truth as He led you. If you wanted to hold on to old stuff, old baggage, pain, whatever it is, that's going to keep you from moving into the Garden of Eden and from that being created in your life. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.